Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 1. Famous poet Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old step-cousin at the age of 27. What are you doing, Step Poe? There is a legal PP size in Iceland, and this comes from the Middle Ages where a man and a woman got married, and on their wedding night, the woman was so disappointed with how small it was that she took him back to the church to get a divorce. And because of her, a law was made that requires you to be 3 inches to get married. During times of war, some armies would wipe their poop on their weapons so that when they stab their enemies, they get that extra poison damage. There are many letters between Benjamin Franklin and various women that suggest that he might have had a fart fetish. The person who wrote Frankenstein lost her virginity on the top of her mother's grave. Great writer, but terrible funeral manners. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 2. A French president died from a blowjob. My man Felix Faure literally got his soul sucked out of him. He was both coming and going. The deadliest female serial killer in American history had murdered 35 people with an axe by the time she was 18 years old. When the ruler of Poland, Jadwiga, was considering a marriage proposal from the Grand Duke of Lithuania, her peers were worried because it was rumored that he had massive genitals and would kill his wife on the wedding night. They ended up sending 2 spies to Lithuania to find out if it was true, and they came back and happily reported that there was nothing to worry about. Powdered wigs were originally invented to cover up head sores caused by syphilis. The first person to examine semen under a microscope was Antony van Leeuwenhoek, the father or daddy of microbiology. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 3. During the 1800s, women were prescribed cocaine tampons, and many believed it to be a particularly effective treatment for gynecological diseases. Egyptian pharaohs would masturbate into the Nile River to worship the gods and keep the river flowing and prosperous. The world's oldest joke dates back to 1900 BC and is about a woman not farting on her husband's lap. Yes, the world's oldest joke is a fart joke. Famous composer Mozart wrote a masterpiece entitled Leck mich im Arsch, which translates to lick me in the ass. In 1910, New Jersey Mayor Arthur Whitaker invented a spanking squad for young offenders. The ancient Romans used to use urine as mouthwash, and not only did they swish around human piss in their mouth, they swished around animal piss too. King Tut's parents were most likely brother and sister, causing the king himself to have multiple birth defects. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 4. King Herod had his wife's body preserved in honey after she died. He then proceeded to have sex with her dead corpse for 7 years. Oh honey. Albert Einstein not only married his first cousin Elsa, but also cheated on her with over 10 other women. Catherine the Great hired full-time professional foot ticklers whose only job was to tickle her feet and sing her songs. Soldiers during World War I were so desperate to get off the battlefield that they intentionally tried to get STDs so they would be discharged and sent home. In the 17th century, there was a form of twerking called molding cockle bread. It was the craze for young women at the time and turned the mundane actions of making bread into a sexual fun act. When sailing to the Americas, Christopher Columbus came across manatees, which he mistook for mermaids. It's also worth noting that manatees have vaginas which are most anatomically similar to humans. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In 1493, Columbus may have had sex with a manatee. Ancient Egyptians used crocodile poop as a contraceptive. Women would shove it up their vagina to block the sperm, and because it was so acidic, that shit actually worked. Benjamin Franklin was really into GILFs. He even wrote a letter to a close friend describing the benefits of an older lady. He writes, "The upstairs ages, but the downstairs does not." Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 6. Greeks, Romans, and Spartans were really into anal for both sexes. Male warriors would do it as a sign of camaraderie and brotherhood, and women would do it before marriage as they only had to be vaginal virgins to get married. The first ever condoms were made of discarded animal parts, such as pig intestines and lamb skin. Queen Victoria's oldest son, King Edward VII, had a love chair custom made for having sex with multiple people at the same time. The same chair later sold for $4 million. In ancient Greece, large peepees were a sign that someone was foolish or stupid, which is why many statues depict small peepees, because this was a sign of intellect. When Phryne, an Athenian on trial in ancient Greece, flashed her boobs to the court, the judges thought they were so perfect that they decided to spare her life. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, Part 7. The first vibrator in history was invented by Cleopatra. She filled up a hollow gourd with angry bees, causing the gourd to vibrate rapidly, and the rest is history. 4 different popes have died during or because of sex. 2 of a heart attack during, and 2 because they were killed by the husbands of the women that they had an affair with. Immediately after bussing onto his wife, the father of microbiology, Antoine van Leeuwenhoek, whipped out his microscope and observed sperm cells for the first time in human history. According to some accounts, King Tut was mummified with a boner. If you have an erection that lasts longer than 2,000 years, please contact an archaeologist for immediate medical assistance. The man who created autopilot, Lawrence Sperry, tested it out by having sex on board with his lover. However, the two bumped the controls and crashed the plane. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, Part 8. Much like small peepees on guys, in ancient Greece, the unibrow was a sign of great beauty and intelligence in women. Oh, can you... After using the bathroom, ancient Romans used a sponge on the end of a stick to wipe their ass. And this same dirty sponge was shared by everyone in the community. Okay, this might be the one time that sharing is not caring. If you were found guilty of adultery in ancient Greece, the husband of the woman with whom you committed the crime had the right to sodomize you with radishes. In the Middle Ages, beaver testicles were considered a delicacy, so they were hunted specifically for this reason. But beavers eventually started to realize this, so they began biting off their own testicles so hunters would stop chasing them. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, Part 10. In a battle between Egypt and Libya in 1182 BC, the commander of the Egyptian army ordered the peepees to be cut off the Libyan soldiers as proof of their defeat. Over 25,000 peepees of Libyan soldiers were collected. A famous ancient Greek doctor named Hippocrates would often taste his patients to diagnose them. And what would he taste, you may ask? Anything from earwax, urine, and even vaginas to diagnose people. In medieval England, royal newlyweds had to have sex in front of all their family members and the entire royal court just to prove that their child was of royal blood. In ancient New Zealand, warriors performed a dance before battle called haka, and they were required to have a full erection while dancing in order to intimidate their enemies. Let's just say their enemies knew exactly what was coming. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, Part 11. In 17th century Europe, it was extremely common for nannies to give young boys a handy to help them fall asleep at bedtime. Mary Poppins could have been a totally different movie. Confessional booths were built by the church not for privacy, but to prevent priests from trying to have sex with the women who confessed their sins. Ancient Romans used a plant called silphium as an extremely effective contraceptive. However, they had so much sex that the plant actually went extinct. 16-year-old Thomas Granger was the first person executed in the US when he was hanged at Plymouth in 1642. His crime? Having sex with a horse, cow, sheep, 2 goats, 2 calves, and a turkey. I guess pilgrims did a little more than just eat the turkey on Thanksgiving. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, Part 12. The Mayans made such horrible tasting alcohol that it was extremely common for people to just inject it into their butt so they didn't have to drink it. And guys, let me tell you, butt chugging gets you drunk fast. I mean, just look how happy this guy is. Ibrahim the Mad of the Ottoman Empire was obsessed with the genitals of a particular cow. So much so that he had a cast made of them in gold that he traveled with in hopes of finding a woman that matched. Eventually though, he did find his Cinderella, which was a 350-pound woman that he nicknamed Sugar Cube. In the Elizabethan era, the word nothing was slang for vagina, coming from the idea that women had no thing between their legs. Therefore, Shakespeare's play Much Ado About Nothing is actually very much ado about fucking. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 13. In the 1930s, there was a trend among colleges in the US where students would attempt to swallow as many live goldfish as possible. Eventually, they created the International Goldfish Gulping Association, in which the all-time champion Joe DiLiberto set a record of sucking down 89 goldfish. For nearly 1,000 years, many women in China intentionally mangled their feet from a young age as they believed that small feet were beautiful. A common hairstyle in 17th century Europe was the Polish plait, a gross, smelly mass of crusty, matted hair cemented together by pus, nits, and dirt. The hairstyle was believed to have healing properties and could supposedly protect people from illnesses. During the Iron Age in Ireland, a new king would be crowned in a ceremony in which he penetrated a horse in front of an audience. The horse would then be eaten for dinner by everyone who just witnessed them doing the dirty. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 13. In ancient Egypt, there was a parasite in Egyptian rivers that would cause horrifying pee-pee bleeding, and this was considered a rite of passage for boys entering into manhood. Catherine the Great had a room filled with erotic furniture that she commissioned personally. We're talking BJs carved into chairs, an end table with giant peepees holding up a marble countertop, and other unspeakable things that I cannot say on TikTok. Needless to say, homegirl had taste. 12-year-old Pocahontas used to entertain white colonists with nude cartwheels. In 1694, Admiral Edward Russell threw an 8-day-long bender with the world's largest cocktail and over 6,000 guests. He poured hundreds of gallons of liquor into an enormous fountain and hired men to paddle around in boats, scoop it up, and serve it to the guests. And 8 days later, the fountain was completely dry. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 14. Philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau would hide in alleyways, pull his pants down, and jump scare women ass first in hopes they would get scared and spank him in self-defense. Apparently, this was his kink. A famous Irish pirate named Anne Bonny would fight with one boob out just to show that not only are you about to get murdered, but you're about to get murdered by an 18-year-old girl. Oh, this is my murder titty. York. The only slave on the Lewis and Clark expedition was a sensation among indigenous American women. They found the guy quite attractive, and he would tell them that he was part bear so they would sleep with him in hopes of producing a bear warrior baby. LBJ used to take out his pee-pee and show people how big it was. He referred to it as jumbo, and here's a phone call of him complaining to a clothing company that their pants were too tight on his ladybird lance.
Hang the crotch down where your nuts hang is always a little too tight. If you can't leave me about an inch from where the zipper ends, round under my back to my bunghole.
Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 15. During their expedition, Lewis and Clark ate their pet dogs, not because they were desperate, they were simply tired of eating salmon. The great magician Houdini once escaped a prison cell while fully nude as to not hide anything to escape. However, what the guards failed to check was that he hid a skeleton key in his ass cheeks. The one time in prison where having a dumpy actually helps you. In the 18th century, sailors on the HMS Dolphin discovered that Tahitian women would gladly trade sex for iron and began pulling nails out, causing loss of the ship's structural integrity. An intern at NASA once stole a safe full of moon rocks, sprinkled them on a hotel bed, and proceeded to have sex with his girlfriend on top of them. Man was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for getting his rocks off. Raphael, the Italian Renaissance artist, not the Ninja Turtle, died of exhaustion from non-stop sex. Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you, part 17. A princess named Zara Khanum was a symbol of beauty in Persia in the 19th century. She was considered so attractive, in fact, that 13 different men took their own lives when she refused to marry them. Throughout history, most common folk had pretty small homes and would sleep together for warmth. So if mom and dad were in the mood, the rest of the family was kind of just there. João VI, former king of Portugal, had a royal master. The inventor of the bra had a pet dog named Clitoris. Shel Silverstein, author of The Giving Tree, was good friends with Hugh Hefner and would regularly go to the Playboy Mansion. William the Conqueror smashed his balls on his horse's saddle and died shortly after. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was particularly hot outside on the day of his funeral, causing his body to swell up and explode inside the coffin.